Hi, my name is Sean Connors, this is Outsiders, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm now going to talk a little bit about, actually while I think about it, I think I'll grab a drink, there's one I prepared earlier. I'm now going to talk about some questions, a mailbag program that's going to contain a few questions that some of you guys have sent off to me in the recent few weeks that I haven't been able to cover off on Skype, which has been very successful. My Skype name is Outsiders68. In case you would like to join me, please add me as a friend, and I'll quite happily accept. And I'll see you around, and we're bound to exchange views and various points, etc. But for those that can't do that, then there is this medium, of course, the mailbag program. One person asked me quite rightly about, I believe his name was Skippy, great name actually, regarding how do I handle experience points. Now I have covered this off before, but for me personally, experience points is a very, very complicated thing for any DM. It's the one thing where if you get it wrong, you pretty quickly know it. Your players really get piddled off, and there is a lot of issues around some games that rely on level increases. So, for example, in Pathfinder 3.5 D&D and Third Era D&D, in fact all D&D to a large degree, because it's level based, the problem is that once characters fall behind, it can be very dangerous for those characters that are already languishing one or two levels behind, particularly if they've also got what I would call diluted characters, so it does become very problematic. So you have to be very mindful of that. So generally how I tend to handle experience is very much about the system that you're playing, about the players you've got around you, but if I'm being honest, and it sounds like you're fairly inexperienced DM there, Skippy, I would say very simply, probably better to be quite generous early on, and as you begin to understand, develop and grow with your players, tighten up. Use what the system gives you in terms of guidelines, and then adapt it to what's comfortable with your players. If your players are happy to accept 1 experience point a session, then to be perfectly blunt, what's wrong with that? It really is about what your players are happy to accept. A lot of groups, in my experience, like to feel progression. I know I would as a player. I like to feel I'm getting somewhere. I don't want to feel like it takes months and months and months just to go up a single level early on. Otherwise, we're never going to get anywhere in this game. And in this day and age, in this marketplace as well, games definitely in the last few years, those that have been developed, I feel are in the old days, to advance a character to high level in Dungeons and Dragons First Edition would take years. I ran a complete campaign that lasted 7 and a bit years, and the highest level character was 21st level, 22nd level rogue, equivalent thief in the old AD&D. Nowadays, I think you could probably get to about 20th level in about a year and a half to 2 years quite comfortably. So a considerable speed up of the way that the games work. And I think that's for the mod market, and I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. It's just that every group is different and everybody's taste is different. So Skippy, I hope that covers off your question, and I hope it's of some benefit to you. If any questions I answer, if there's more information you need, then please feel free to ask me, and I shall do what I can. Now, recently we've touched on developing a retro system, and that's had some brilliant responses. I thank you for those. And there's been many questions from it. Are we going to continue that? Yes, we are. I will be continuing the retro system. I will probably, the first effort at it, you throw up a lot of interesting questions, and then somebody threw up a very, very solid question that basically means that I probably have to go slightly back to the drawing board and then come back at you again with another video. So that's probably what I'll do, and then we'll go forward from there for the people that are most interested in supporting the idea and helping. So without further ado, please keep in touch about the retro system, and I will try and endeavour to answer your questions as best I can. Now, somebody asked me, I think it was T. Walker asks, how do you tell a DM they're wrong? Oh, that's a great question, that. I think it's all about timing, if I'm being honest. I mean, I think if a DM's decision, to be honest, I've said this before, if a DM's decision is not immediately life-threatening for your character or your friend's character or whoever, I don't think you should bring it up there and then. I think you should leave it till after the game and at a convenient point, not immediately after the session, because the DM needs some feedback, yeah? If you just go on the negative, oh, I think you got this ruling wrong, it's quite harsh, because they've got a lot to weigh up in the game, and sometimes, like any judge, there are circumstances where something isn't applicable in their mind. So I think we have to be very respectful of that, and I know as a DM, sometimes we're the worst critics, because we go into someone else's game, we expect what we do, and that's not right. So I would honestly say, unless it's life-threatening, then don't actually approach it in the way they're wrong. Just after the session or at a convenient point, talk to them and say, I thought we were playing XYZ rules. I noticed you changed that. Is that right? Could you have a look at it for me? And is that your interpretation? That the way we're going to run it from now on? If the DM says that's the way he's going to run it from then on, then I think at that point he's made his judgment and he has to be consistent. If he then wavers again, that's not good DMing, because then the players don't know where they stand. It's very much sifting sands. So that's the way you do it. It's all about the timing and the approach and whether it's relevant. Sometimes, it's such a minor point. I wouldn't bring it up till a few days after the game. I'd just have a chat with the DM. I noticed you did this in the game. I was wondering if you had a look at the rule in more detail now you've had time to think about it. Do you think you made the right... Do you think that you would do it that way next time, so we're all aware of it? That's how I probably would approach it. If it was life-threatening, of course, I think you have to say something straight away and say, look, I need to bring to your attention this. And it has to be life-threatening. And that's really... There is a real clear distinction there, I think. So, anyway, that answers that. And now we move on to the final question of tonight's mailbag programme. In my view, it's an absolute humdinger. And I will say that this particular gentleman I'm a big fan of this gentleman, and I really appreciate him making contact direct with me. He asks, his name is Robert Harris, you can read his work. He is a registered author, he's fantastic. And he asked me through email, what is my DMing philosophy? And that is a very, very difficult question for anybody really to answer, but I'm going to give it my best shot, so thank you, Robert, for that question. For me, my DMing philosophy has always been very simple. I treat the hobby seriously to a large degree, but I always have a lot of fun. But I treat it myself as if I believe I'm an expert, and that's the only way I can describe it. I'm not saying I don't get things wrong. Things do happen. But I'm always prepared to learn from them. I'm always prepared to take a step back and say, yep, I got something wrong. But I set my bar so high. I really push the envelope in DMing. And I constantly do it. And I develop my own style. And without a doubt, I know my strengths. And I'm very clear on my weaknesses. And I do a lot of work to create the illusion of strength in some of the areas that are not so strong for me. And I think I do it very, very well. I use my smoke and mirrors incredibly deviously. But my philosophy has always been, I treat it as if I am now, at this point, after many, many years of play, I think I'm an expert. I really strongly believe I'm a very good DM. I know I'm a good DM. I know I'm a good DM, and I know that I'm a good teacher. And the reality is, in my players, I want to bring out the best in my players and create the best players around. And I would match any of my players up. There are still players learning, but there are many players who've been with me many years, and they are absolute exponents of it. They understand the fine lines, and if I may go into a little detail, we have gone full circle as a group. So we have been through the power gaming, the role play, the campfire, and I use that all the time, and I mean literally role play the campfire. We've gone the full spectrum and service of it, and what we realised many years ago was that you want a bit of everything. You want a bit of role play, you want a bit of logic. You don't want characters that are talking rubbish, yeah? From the point of view that, well, Sean, that's the way my character would play. Really, is it? So that you'd be as arsey as that, would you? And you'd basically put other characters' lives in danger. And that's because the way you want to play the character, you selfishly want to go ahead and play it that way to put those players in the deep poo. And that's the way you want to play it. That's, to me, unacceptable and poor. And I don't like that. And that forms part of my philosophy. I like to see players take the best of everything. I like players who can utilise previous knowledge from campaigns. I don't mind that because it creates history, it creates backflow, it creates good stories. I like people to use their intelligence. You can't play a character. It's very easy to dumb down, and you can have a laugh with that, but it's not much fun for the players around you. I just say, look, whatever, irrespective of your bloody intelligence scores, play yourself, yeah, in terms of your intelligence. Play your intelligence. Play, bring the best characters you can bring, have fun, develop a character, really get into it, role play with me, and you'll definitely give me a bone and you'll definitely get the meat back. I'll definitely help you build your characters, and I'll definitely help you to a point where you will create a character that is so worth having around the table. But for that to work, I as a DM must also be challenged. So my philosophy to my players has always been the same. I want something back from you. I'm not a puppet on the string. I'm not here just for your entertainment. You're here for mine as well. And if we collaborate together and we work together, I'll make sure that we all come away with something important. And the other thing as well, as part of my philosophy, has always been that I know when to bring a campaign to a close. Now that's going to sound odd advice, but I really know when it's best to say that's as far as I think this can go, and we must now bring it to a close. That doesn't mean I change the campaign every week, because my campaigns last over a year every time, and most of them last several years. But there's always a key point when you must say, enough's enough, it's run out of the mileage and legs, and a good DM knows when to do that. So I've shared with you a little of my philosophies. Thank you very much for the question. I've been Sean Connors, this has been Outsiders. Till the next time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.